Chapter 30. Did you consider any other careers? How did you choose? My dad worked at a grocery store from the time I was born until he retired. He first worked at a Piggly Wiggly store that was on East Main Street in the first block from the courthouse. This was a store franchise owned by a Mr. Eisner from Champaign. After a few years, Mr. Eisner changed the store to his own name and began to grow his business and opened many more, known as Eisner's Grocery. My dad then worked at the much larger store that the company built on North Vermilion. It was the largest supermarket in the area outside of Champaign. Later, Eisner's stores were taken over by Jewel out of Chicago, and later known as Jewel Osco, after buying out Osco drugstores. When I was 15 and a half, I was old enough to get a work permit and get a part-time job as I went to high school. My dad knew the store manager, Mr. Hadley, at the Eisner store on East Main, and it was a done deal for me to get a job there as a bag boy carryout after school. I worked there all through high school and learned to do many of the jobs at the store. When I graduated from DHS in the summer of 1964, I stayed on as a part-time worker at the store. My work schedule was Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., which was 30 hours, and that gave me all afternoon and evenings plus weekends to do whatever I wanted, like play in a band. I did get a full-time job in the winter of 64, 65 working at the C&EI shops. I continued to work some evenings and weekend days at Eisner's, though. That job ended when the shops finished the contract to build 600 boxcars. That work was not that tough, but working in a factory was not what I wanted for the future. I really liked work at the grocery store. In the summer of 1965, I met Marilyn Kuhn. Somehow, I knew that this girl was special. I went back to my terrific work schedule of 6 hours a day and off at 1 p.m. That way I could go out to the sun and swim pool on Liberty and see her. She was there every day. Most of the time I would get to take her home after her socializing and sunbathing was done for the day. That was the start of a wonderful summer for me and a wonderful relationship. As our relationship grew and changed and we headed into starting a family together, my need to find a full-time job became apparent. It was an easy thing to transition to full-time at the Eisner store. This is what I did. I already learned how the store operated and had worked in about every job there. I soon took on the role of managing departments. I liked the work and working days, and having weekends and evening to play music was good. In 1967 we were married, and in 68 I was a father. I had to be the provider for a family. Eisner's was eager to put me in a management training program, so they transferred me to the store in Rantoul, Illinois. We were living in the Kuhn house on Denmark Road, and the drive to Rantoul was not bad as it could have been if we lived on the other side of town. But we were already on the edge of town, and I just drove out through the country to get to the store. I don't remember how many months I worked at the Rantoul store, but it was just a few. I had given my management training some more thought, and working out of town or even moving out of town was not for me. I asked to transfer back to Danville, and they agreed to do that for me. When I talked to my parents about future work at Eisner's, I realized that store managers had to move from store to store as part of their job advancement. This is not for me. I continued to work at Eisner's through the summer of 1968 as third man at the East Main store. Third man means that you have lots of responsibilities, including opening and closing the store and managing several departments. It also meant that you worked all the days and hours that the store manager and assistant manager didn't want to work. Those days and hours were Friday and Saturday nights. This really was a conflict with my music business. And when I say music business, I mean that my second income was at stake. Just like my dad, my second income was very important to the well-being of the family. Thus, in the fall of 1968, I left Eisner's. All I had was the band at that point. For about a month, I looked at various openings for jobs in the area. Then, one day, there was an ad in the paper for a job in the sales department at Bone Aluminum. This was the beginning of a great future for me. For the next 25 years, I grew at the company and provided for my family. It turned out to be a good choice to leave Eisner's and join the Bone team.